Hey there YouTube, this is Adam with Retro Repairs here, and I'm going to take a look at this Toploader NES system. So I picked this up from eBay. Cost about $45, 40 or 45, give or take a few. And the guy that sold it says that he's not getting any response from it when he turns it on. So I plugged it in, tested a cartridge that works, and all I get is a gray screen. So in doing a little bit of research, it's possible that it's this cartridge slot, but most likely the culprit is potentially one of the PPUs. Now, fortunately, being an older system, the PPUs aren't terribly difficult to replace, so we may end up doing that in this video. We'll see. We're going to try and find out what's wrong with it. So we're going to start by opening it up and cleaning it. As you can see, there's all sorts of grime and stuff on here. It's just overall in kind of dirty condition, especially right in here. It's kind of tough to see on camera, but it almost looks like sand stuck in there. So I'm very curious what the inside of this is going to look like. So let's get started. We'll crack it open. Unlike the original NES console that you're maybe used to in North America, this doesn't use a Phillips screwdriver. It requires a game bit, which is a special security screw that you can get to open up most Nintendo consoles. So I'm going to get that going. If you don't have one of these, I suggest buying one if you plan on doing any types of repairs. They cost a couple of dollars, and it is a very good investment. It'll save a lot of headaches. So, being that this is a much smaller system than the original NES, there are only 4 security screws holding this together. So let's get those open, and we'll see what the board inside looks like. There we go, 4 screws, and top just lifts right off. So right away I'm seeing all sorts of interesting stuff. I don't know what this brown stuff here is. Something clearly leaked into this, and I'm actually kind of concerned about what kind of damage might be on this board. Let's go further. We'll open it up and see what we can get. So to get past this shielding, you need a Phillips screwdriver. So I typically use a magnetic screwdriver. That's the wrong size. Where possible, I use a magnetic screwdriver. It makes it a lot easier if any screws drop or anything like that. You can pick them up with just the tip. Yeah, these screws are pretty corroded. Well, let's see what we got. Oh, one more at the bottom here. I almost couldn't see this bottom screw because it was so covered in some sort of white gunk that it blended right in with the shielding. Alright, so this should just lift right out. Yep. Okay, so the bottom, I don't even know what to say about this. I don't know what this is. Is that, did it used to be a drink? Is it, I don't know. Whatever it is, let's get that cleaned up. So, flipping back over to the top, this piece of shielding will come right off. And now we can see the inside of the system. So, yeah, most of the board doesn't look too bad. Obviously, there's something going on here, so these resistors may need replacing. I think this is a potentiometer here, this green thing. I'll have to see what that is, and that may need replacing as well. This capacitor may need to be replaced. I don't know if we can see that, but there is some white gunk kind of at the bottom. So if that capacitor's burst, then that could explain some of the issues that we're having. I mean, it doesn't physically, yeah, at the bottom, maybe. So I'm going to replace that. Yeah, this is just overall in rough condition. So I guess best thing we can do here is get it apart, get it cleaned up, and see what works and what doesn't. What is all this? Just corrosion everywhere. So I'm very curious what actually got into this system, because obviously this isn't very good. Yeah, well, let's get this apart. I'm gonna get this heat shield off as well, heat sink off, and let's get cleaning this. And one more. So before I lift this off, there's the voltage regulator here. We need to get that removed as well. The screw just holds it onto the heat sink to dissipate some of the heat, so we have to unscrew that. Okay, so this is everything underneath. This capacitor here is just about ready to go, so that will need to be replaced. You can see, I don't know if you can really tell on the video, so it's starting to bulge out at the top. So it's like getting ready to go anytime here. I'm going to do a full capacitor replacement on this board. There's no reason to replace a couple of them and not all of them. They're not hard to do, so may as well just do it. Also, got to figure out why this is all rusty. I don't think this has something to leak, but if it does, that will need to be replaced. The resistors probably need replacing. Yeah, so this will be a full capacitor replacement project. At that point, we will go through and evaluate these chips. So just to make sure none of these are dead at all, because these very easily, especially, I think these are the PPUs up here, these very easily could start going bad as well. So they may need to be pulled. Fortunately, my understanding is the same chips work for the top loader as they do for the regular NES that we're used to. So probably we would be able to harvest one from a known working North American original NES and put them in here. Reason I would do that is the top loaders, if working, are really a lot more valuable and a lot rarer to find. So that would be definitely worth trying to do. We may need to also look in this RF modulator, because it's just chock full of rust and stuff too. So yeah, this will be a fair amount of work to get working again. So I'm gonna have to order some capacitors. I won't be able to get this going right now. I have a bunch on order right now currently, but they're coming from China, and it could be a week, it could be 3 months. It's really difficult to say. You're really rolling the dice when you order from China. So once I have everything here, I will continue with this particular video, and hopefully we can get this top loader going again. So I just want to show you an example of one of these capacitors that I removed. This one right here, I went to go bend it a little bit. These legs should have a bit of give to them, so they will move, but it was so badly corroded that it just ripped right off with very minimal force. So I'm hoping that capacitor replacement will be able to really solve this issue. So this board's going to need a good cleaning as well. I got the main capacitor off, so that one came off fairly easily, and just continuing to go through the board and get the old ones. So I just wanted to give you an example of how we resolder a new capacitor in. So this is the replacement capacitor I got. It's the same size, same capacitance and voltage as the one that I removed. it is slightly taller, so hopefully the heatsink will still fit properly. I didn't even test that yet. Oh yeah, lots of room still. So what we do, we get that, putting it through the holes, making sure that the negative is on the side with the negative, which there's a little line right there representing that. And then what you do to hold it in place, once the legs are through, is just simply bend the legs out at a 90-degree angle. That makes sure that the capacitor doesn't move. Next, what we'll do is grab your solder and see if we can zoom in a little bit here. Grab your solder, grab your iron, and all you're going to do is put a little blob of solder right there, and that's just going to hold the capacitor leg in place on the pads. So it is fairly simple to do. Difficult to really screw it up. The only thing you need to make sure of is that that solder that you put doesn't bridge any type of connection, so it's not touching anything else. Turn it over. It's now cooled. It's in place. Give it a little look over with your eyes just to make sure everything looks right. And once you're happy with it, all you do is cut off the legs. Just like that, and we've got a new capacitor installed. So I'm going to do that for the rest of them, and we'll test it out once the capacitors are replaced. So I've got this all set up, and the capacitors have been replaced fully. Time to give this a try and see if this helps at all. Turn it on, still a gray screen. So I know that this game works, so I'm not worried about the game itself. I'm going to try just reseat it a couple times, and we'll see if that changes anything. So pulled it out, still the same gray screen. So something else clearly is at fault here, and it's not just the capacitors. I mean, they did need to be replaced, but something else is causing a problem, and it might be in this RF adapter, so we may have to open that up and clean it all out a bit more, or it could be a chip. So the adventure continues. So I've discovered something a little bit interesting. I was going through the board and checking voltages, so I started out with testing the voltage regulator here. So by touching ground, and I touch the input side, my multimeter reads about 12 volts, which looks right. If I touch the output side, I get 5 to 6 volts, which again is correct. You notice I take away the probe and I still get 6 volts throughout the ground. This tells me somewhere something is bridging between the power supply and the ground, and this may have caused some fairly significant issues. The very first thing I noticed is this area right here. So if I go through and I follow where the power goes, it comes in through the power jack, it goes down to the power switch, it comes back up, and once the circuit's complete, it goes into this area right here. So you should get 5 volts coming right off of the voltage regulator there, 6 volts, and then it distributes throughout the board. So right down here is another point where you should be getting 5 or 6 volts, which is right. However, you shouldn't be getting it on the ground rails. And right here, it almost looks like I'm starting to get maybe some corrosion that's bridged the joint here. So I'm going to need to clean this up, see if perhaps that's the issue that we're having, is just that corrosion has created a point here where we're getting voltage passed on to the ground. If I check this with a continuity tester, so touch them together, we have continuity. Touch the ground together, continuity. I touch ground and here together, I don't get continuity. So we will have to see where it is that the voltage is being passed along. So I'm going to try once again to clear up some of this rust. It also could be somewhere in the chip that voltage is being passed along to the ground rail. So one other thing I've noticed here, and I'm not sure if this is as intended or not, so I've completely disconnected power, and when I touch the ground, I touch the voltage regulator, touch the power capacitors, I get no voltage. As soon as I plug in the RF cable, I'm now getting voltage through the ground, I'm getting voltage through the voltage regulator, only 5 volts still, which I mean is about what should be coming through, but I don't think I'm supposed to be getting current if there's no power hooked up. If I touch the, sorry, this is the voltage regulator here. If I touch the RF pins, once again, I'm getting voltage. So I wonder if there's a problem inside this RF modulator where something is shorting out and sending current throughout the board. That's my suspicion. So I think this is something I'm going to have to investigate a bit more. I'm curious, do I get anything off pin 21 down here? Still get a couple volts. This is the pin that carries the video signal to the RF modulator. So if I'm getting something there, I don't really know what it means, but I'm going to have to look into it a bit more now. So I'm going to attempt one other test here, and this is to see if I'm getting any type of video signal out of the PPU at all. So what I've done is I'm going to plug this in, and let's give it a second. There we go. So I'm going to plug it in, and what I've done is I've connected some wires to an RCA cable, and that's going into my TV. So what I want to have happen is I'm going to connect the brown to the ground, and this pin right here, pin number 21 on the PPU, controls video out. So ideally what I want to have happen is I turn the system on and I get a video signal of some type. So let's turn it on and let's touch it to pin number 21. I'm not getting any signal here. Just want to make sure that this is fully grounded. Nothing. Let's make sure that I haven't bent that. I'll try a different hole here. Okay, so I got my brown ground in here. I'm actually gonna, on the flip side, kind of bend the pin a little bit so that it stays. There we go. Nope. I'm having such a hard time with this. There. So that feels a bit more secure. Touch pin 21. I'm still not getting anything. I wonder why that is. I wonder if my continuity in the cable is lost. So we will touch, get my multimeter, I'm going to touch the tip here, and with the other side we're going to touch the cable. I don't really have a good way of holding this. Okay, let's touch the white side. So I have no continuity. That would be why. So I'm going to try and fix this cable and we'll try it. Alright, so I'm going to try one more test here. What I've done is I've hooked up the ground from a piece of RCA cable just into the ground here. I'm going to try and touch the tip of this against pin 21 on the PPU, and that's where the composite video signal comes out of. Ideally, if this works well and if it's just the RF modulator, I should get a picture on the screen. Now, when I do this, sorry, I just lost my connection. When I touch it, it goes black. And I get no picture. So, I mean, that tells me that there might be an issue here with this CPU. Still just black. Let go, and it's back to blue. Touch it, and I get black. So, I mean, I suspect maybe one of these chips are starting to go bad on here. So, I've purchased some sockets. I'm going to go through desoldering the chips and attempting to put sockets on the board, and I can test out the chips one by one using a known working front loader NES. Ideally, I'd like to get this top loader working instead of the front loader, so that will be a bit more of a challenge, but hopefully we can get something to come of it.